Hello, everybody. I'm Harvey Silverman, and I'm welcoming you to the March 2024 NGCOA Golf Business Live Tech Talks. First, a little pet peeve. It bothers me that people say 2024 rather than 2024. We didn't say 1,995 or 1,865 back in other centuries. We should be saying 2024. That's the proper usage and illustration of what year we're in. Anyway, that's my pet peeve. That's enough for today. I have the distinct honor and pleasure of greeting a very good friend. I don't like to say old friend because we're both old, but a very good friend, longtime friend, somebody who I have been following and have interviewed in the past, and has a perspective today on something that's got a technology background in a way, but we're not necessarily technology centric in this interview. So I'm welcoming the current Director of Public Affairs for the Southern California Golf Association, Craig Kessler.
Well, good morning, Harvey. We're doing this late morning on the West Coast on tape. And, if we went through all of my pet peeves, we'd run out of time and we'd never get to the subject at hand. So I'll pass on any of my pet peeves. But okay. I do concur with you about 2024.
Thank you very much. So we have Craig on because of an interesting situation that's developed in the Los Angeles market in particular, but in other markets where there is an exceeding demand outpacing the supply of golf courses, golf holes, so to speak. Los Angeles, just a little background, and Craig can talk about this as well, is the most underserved golf market in the country in terms of holes per public golfer. Unless you're a private golfer and can afford to pay the huge fees to join places like Wilshire and LA Country Club and Hillcrest and so on, you are subject to playing at municipal courses in particular in Los Angeles County, both city and county, because there are no daily fee courses left in LA County. I think might be one left way up somewhere out in the more rural area. So you have this incredible demand happening. And just as other sports and concert venues have experienced, especially recently, probably most notably the Taylor Swift tours and what's happened with Ticketmaster, there have begun or not begun, but developed a number of broker markets where brokers are grabbing up as many tee times as they can and reselling them at a fee to people who really want to have those tee times to play golf. So whether there's a technology thing in here or not, we'll talk a little bit about, but Craig has been on top of this. There's been a couple articles written recently. The one that caught my attention was in Yahoo Finance or Yahoo News. And it seems to be a problem for folks running both the city and the county golf in Los Angeles. Craig, what's going on there?
Well, Harvey, you gave a pretty good background or good context. Los Angeles is the most golf-starved market in the nation, according to the National Golf Foundation. The most golfers chasing the fewest golf holes in what is really the number one golf market. It's only outpaces New York because we have much better weather, so we play more rounds of golf with fewer persons. So to add on to your point, there is one and only one daily fee golf course left in the city of LA. It is in the Tujunga Wash, which has horse stables around. It's literally in a rural corner of the city, and it's in a riverbed. So really nothing else can be put on that piece of property. Los Angeles was home 50, 60 years ago, was home to multiple daily fee facilities, and they were all very successful. But this is my hometown, and if you're down here, Harvey, I could take you on a tour of all the old famous daily fee golf courses that the Stars played, Joe Louis played. There's been a lot written about them, and now they're home to five-star hotels, malls, $1 million luxury homes, skyscrapers. good friend of mine who's an avid golfer, a banker, I pointed out that his beautiful suite up on the 12th floor is in a building that was once the Fox Hills 36-hole complex. So what you see happening, and Los Angeles may be the worst example in the country, but increasingly other major American cities are going to see the same phenomenon. It's called market capitalism, that creative destruction, that property tends to go to the highest and best use, with the two exceptions that you mentioned. Private clubs, 400 individuals own a piece of property. They can do whatever they want with it. And if they want to keep it as a golf club, that is what is going to happen. And then the rest of the market is served by these parkland golf courses, municipal golf courses, which again, there's a lot of, for many who follow these things closely, they know that we fought off some legislation in recent sessions that would have given free money to develop even those into housing complexes with a certain affordability quotient. So that's the backdrop, and that's why there's been so much pressure and so much press. What you probably missed was the Sunday edition of the Los Angeles Times, which is the most widely circulated newspaper in the state of California. The lead editorial in the Sunday edition was imploring first the city, but also the rest, to fix the problem, that this was unfair. It was a very, very even-keeled editorial in the sense that it pointed out what you and I have both pointed out. Even if you had 100% equitable access, it would still be very, very difficult to get a tee time in this particular environment. However, equitable access is a must when you're talking about publicly owned properties. So the context is important because laudably, whether it's the city of Los Angeles, the county of Los Angeles, city of Pasadena, I can then name some smaller cities, Long Beach, which is really part of the urban Los Angeles area, and has a superb municipal system, which is really the busiest in the United States, is all of them have hewed in a way that many other Sunbelt cities have not. They believe it's their obligation to make these golf courses as affordable and accessible as possible. I think many would be surprised at what I would call the main rack rates, but the junior rates are $5 and the high school rates are $4 and the senior rates are barely over 20 at most of these places. With this particular shortage is the makings of a black market. That's how these things exist. Where there's an opportunity to make a lot of money by buying something, if you can figure out a way to do it, and there are ways to do it, because the current technologies, I mean, we're talking about a technology to make tee time reservations. It's not sophisticated. This is not a NASA project. This is not a moonshot here. And it works in much of the country, but increasingly they're going to have to take some measures to get around it. So if you can buy things en masse for, let's say, $30 to $50, and you have a market who will pay double or triple that for the ability to get the time, you have a black market, and there's no way to avoid it. So there's nothing insidious about it. It's just, and there are definitely policies, for example, the city of Los Angeles has. And in the last year, they have canceled hundreds, if not thousands, of their reservation cards when they discovered them being used in these broker schemes. But they can't stay ahead of it. Where there's easy money to be made, and it's human labor. It's really not the bots that everyone thinks it is. It's literally these rooms full of people, and the way in which it's easiest to do is whatever it is, you advertise, you have tee times available, so you get person's reservation card, their numbers, and that's attached to a name, and you make masses of times, and then you get clients and you advertise the times that you have, and at 2:42 a.m. or 3:26 a.m. exactly, you cancel that time, and there's no penalty for canceling it. Not yet. There may be. I think we'll see in the coming weeks some penalties for this. And then if you have a client, you simply rebook the time, and it goes in that client's name, and that is the person who shows up on Saturday morning with that 9 o'clock tee time, pays a rack rate over and above whatever they paid the broker. That their ID is checked. It's not that complicated, and it's not that sophisticated either. And again, if there wasn't a lot of money to be made off of it, this wouldn't exist. So there is an alternative. The city of Los Angeles could let the market determine the rates at some of those golf courses. If you think Torrey Pines is expensive, You and I, Harvey, if the city of LA approached us and said, we want to really just make money off our Rancho Park golf course on the west side that has hosted all the major golf tours, I would say it would cost a lot more than that. It doesn't have the ocean views, but it is the only game in town for some of the richest and most famous, and some of the persons who stay at all those expensive hotels and business conferences. There's nowhere for them to play. And the clubs you mentioned at the beginning, those private clubs do not want to see tourists come out to their facility. So those are private places. So having said that, this is, I think everyone has known for some period of time that there's a problem. Now that it's blown up and blown out into the public consciousness, I think in the next 90 days, you're going to see things like random release, if it's technologically possible, of cancellations. You will probably see some forms of non-refundable advanced reservation fees. The virtue of that mainly is that you authenticate a credit card, and you have the ability, because you can buy these gift cards en masse and put $5 on them. And the way the technology works now, it comes across as a legitimate credit card. So, but if you have someone's real card, so there's various things under discussion. And I expect the major systems, those in the urban core, will begin to implement these things and probably seek a little bit of public patience as they go back to their internet reservation vendors to try to upgrade the technology. Golfers have to understand that all of these things are going to cost money, and that's going to chip away at that affordability quotient. But it's going to a golfer. We've implored them to understand that it's certainly preferable than allowing the market to do it. So that whether it's cancellation fees, advanced reservation fees, or in essence, maybe some greens fee increases that have nothing to do with the maintenance and operation of the golf course, and everything to pay for the upgraded technology to stay ahead of the brokers. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. And I'll just, since this is tech talk, government's technology is not their strong suit. Harvey, you and I live in California, so we know during COVID, our employee development department was defrauded out of billions of dollars that they'll never get back in their haste to simply accommodate the flood of unemployment claims and the various other things that happen. And that's because California may be home to Silicon Valley, it may be home to the most sophisticated computer technology in the world, but when it comes to the governments implementing it, not so much. So that's the backdrop to this. I think the public, and I'm going to let you actually ask some questions. I guess you just sort of teed me up and let me talk, so it must be on some of the points you want to get to. But there's actually a silver lining in all of this, and I hope we get to that before we go off the air.
Okay, Craig, thanks. And you're right. I did tee you up on purpose, expecting the type of explanation that you had for what the situation is in LA. And for all we know, this is happening in other major markets. You mentioned New York. That could be one of them as well. There are others where this type of overwhelming demand, just kind of launches the capitalistic idea of, hey, is there a way I can make money on this? I did, as is my habit, do a little research. The city of LA uses GolfNow. That is their main online booking engine. I did reach out to my contact, Dan Higgins at GolfNow, and asked him some questions, hoping that I could shed some good light on what GolfNow has been doing in fighting off bots. There was a mention in the article about how GolfNow had been or has been for some time programming and doing things to identify and stop the bots from doing exactly what, as you mentioned, human bots are doing, which is kind of an interesting term that we really hadn't used before. I did not receive a reply, and I think that's unfortunate. I also found Googling around, found a couple interviews with Ticketmaster people about the difficulty they've had. And the implication from a couple of the interviews that I saw were that they really can't keep up. with the technology of bots that are, you know, getting into the Ticketmaster system and when major concert tickets are released, like with Taylor Swift, and buying up, you know, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of tickets and reselling them for a profit. Ticketmaster has had an extreme amount of problems trying to stop that. I don't think that's the case with Golf Now. And as you mentioned, you know, we're talking about a fairly simple reservation process, or what you and I think is a fairly simple reservation process that others, maybe more senior, maybe in other cultures or languages, are having trouble utilizing to make reservations and get in there quick enough to get the tee times they want. It was unfortunate that the article that I read specifically identified the Korean community, and I don't think that's the case. And I think, Craig, you mentioned in the opinion article in the LA Times that they didn't take that position.
No, it's unfortunate. Some of the coverage has been that because there's been a lot of focus on the Wilson and Harding golf courses in Griffith Park, which is very close to a large Korean American community. And there's no doubt that that the Korean American community is more passionate about golf than any other ethnic community you could identify in Southern California. So it's inevitable, if you're talking about any issue, there you will find more evidence of it, particularly if you go smack there. But if you go into other places, there's no, and it is someone from the Korean American community that kind of went into a Korean language site and brokerage and sort of broke this with someone, a social media was influencer. And that was kind of the first piece of evidence that these things existed, that you could document. Everyone sort of knows it's happening, but finding the evidence is very difficult because these things are by word of mouth. So that was where it came from, you know. And I'm proud of most of the golfers. Obviously, there was a very raucous LA City Golf Advisory Commission meeting last week, but I was very proud that the golfers were mostly on point. Yeah, they were a little bit angry, but they were on point. They were seeking solutions. They had a lot of good ideas, many of which have been discussed for a long time, sort of in the background. And they stayed away from that particular focus because maybe golfers understood in a way that sometimes reporters don't, that this is a fairly prevalent problem, and it goes beyond one particular area in the city of LA. I've done some research too and discovered that particularly in San Diego, the really popular municipal golf facilities do have these non-refundable advance reservation fees. So that if you make a schedule, you schedule a foursome, you got to be serious about maintaining it. Unless there's a penalty, what's happened is that a lot of persons will try to get and they'll get a lot of times, and they won't always cancel. And that's unfortunate too, that there could be a tee time that goes open when you have thousands of people who might have wanted to play in it. And again, the other thing that strikes us is, you know, in a golf association that spends a lot of time focusing on getting as many dollars from the golfers' pockets into the capital reserve funds for these golf courses to make sure that they stay high quality over time, that they can replace their greens and their irrigation systems and their parking lots, and so the buildings don't fall down, is that the sad part is a lot of money is being sucked out of the system that's not going to the owners, it's not going to the operators, it's not going to the capital reserve funds, it's going to third-party profiteers. So to the degree to which I always preach this to golfers and to the governments, I really laud the fact that they're down with that mission of affordability and accessibility. But keep in mind, giving a little bit and then being able to fund the golf courses in particular. There's been some discussion with some of the operators in the county, some of the large ones that have the management agreements and the lease agreements. They're willing, if they do an advanced reservation fee, they want to take a couple of bucks out of that and send it to junior golf programs and capital reserve things. So this is again, I sense that's part of the silver lining is this blew up publicly. And when things blow up publicly, you get action a little faster. But there's another one too, and we'll get to. I'm just reminding you, we'll get to that before we go off the air.
And I'll note that reserving tee times on Golf Now is not free. There is a convenience fee added for each golfer. So those brokers who are going on to Golf Now and finding tee times and reserving them, hoping to resell them, are putting a little bit of skin in the game. You know, whether that's, I think the convenience fee I saw at Rancho Park was $3.49 per golfer. So there is some skin in the game that they have to be paying, and that is non-refundable. As far as advanced reservation fees, I've used that. I've seen that used myself. In fact, first place I saw it used was Half Moon Bay Golf. This wasn't municipal. This was a high-end daily fee, Half Moon Bay Golf Links. I checked this morning. Their advanced reservation fee has now gone to $40 per person if you want to reserve more than 30 days in advance. The idea of advanced reservation fees, and I've used it at a couple of my clients. It does work. Their consumers have the mentality of either wanting to be first in line or have the best seats. And that's kind of the mentality with people saying, okay, I'm willing to pay an extra $5 or $10 or whatever that might be to make sure I get that tee time I want on the day I want to play, even though it might be 30 or 60 days in advance. The philosophy and the method that I saw that really won me over on this is Southwest Airlines early bird check-in. When they launched that in 2009, and it was $7.50 a person, because Southwest Airlines, to check in, you got to be right there at 24 hours in advance to hit the button to make sure that you don't get in the C group, which means you're going to be sitting in the middle seat. So they launched this early bird check-in. They're charging people $7.50 each. That first year, 2009, that they launched early bird check-in, they gained $37 million in new revenue that they didn't have before. There was literally millions of people that were saying, this is much more convenient for me, or I might be traveling, not next to my computer 24 hours in advance. I'll pay the extra. Those fees have now gone as high as $25 per segment to have early bird check-in. So when I saw that, and I thought, well, with growing demand in golf, there might be an opportunity and a certain segment of golfers who say, you know what, I want to make sure I get that Saturday time on my birthday 30 days from now, and the booking window is only 7 days. So I'm going to pay the extra to get that time. And they do. It's a surprisingly large number of people willing to make that commitment in a non-refundable advanced reservation fee. And very rarely do, at least with my clients, have there been issues with people saying, hey, you know what, I really couldn't make it. I'm sorry, you know, my dog died or whatever. Can I get a refund? And the course has that discretion. I mean, the course always has discretion on how they handle things like that.
Harvey, there are some really quality daily fee golf courses outside of Los Angeles County that have policies that have great public acceptance, where when you reserve a foursome, it's not, you pay for it, it's non-refundable, period. Mm-hmm. And that works. That's how high the demand is. Torrey Pines has last time I looked, a $30 advanced reservation fee, because that's an international market. And that's by and large not so much. Well, the residents are saying the demand is so high that they're now having to use it to gain access, and that's a separate issue. But it was implemented really so that if you live in Illinois and you're going to be in San Diego for 1 week, 6 months from now, and you want to play Torrey Pines, you will simply do that because it resembles more a resort. But there are other, what I would call quality municipal golf courses. Coronado is one of the great municipal golf courses in the United States, which is right across from downtown San Diego on a peninsula. And I believe it's, if you book a foursome in 14 days in advance, 7 days in advance, there's no fee. But I don't think you could, if you go to 7 days, there's nothing open. So in essence, a de facto, you have to do it to get a time. It's $25 per group, and that's non-refundable, and that's acceptable. Where this becomes dicey or dangerous is the whole philosophy behind, you don't, for political reasons, don't want to see these municipal golf courses, which are built. I mean, I credit the LA Times editorial on Sunday pointed out, this is not your country club. These courses were built and they're so average working men and women in Los Angeles can play this game of golf otherwise because they can't, who can afford a private club? When they devolve into little playgrounds just for the privilege, because only about 11% of the population plays golf, period, then they could lose their political sustainability in places in urban America. Because elected leaders, when they go to a park in their district, a soccer field, any kind of amenity that's publicly owned, including a golf course, they want to see their constituents playing golf. What they don't want to see is a bunch of people who came from outside, and they're not persuaded that council member or madam supervisor, yes, but look at the revenue they're bringing in. They're thinking, no, I want this to serve my constituents. So it's a fine line and a difficult balance moving forward. And believe me, that is a balance that confronts me every day, because as you know, Harvey, in urban America, at least in urban California, these golf courses have been attacked from all quarters. And that's the silver lining here, because I have run into so many groups, particularly sometimes they're environmental groups, river restoration. The first thing out of their mouth is golf is underutilized. They're wrong about that. Or it takes up too much space, or only the rich play golf. Let's do something else with it. As you know, we have a housing bill. Let's do that with it. Do these other things. And so it's difficult with all the media that this gotten, that many people are that angry that you can't secure a tee time. That has made the public consciousness. In addition, if I'm an office holder and I'm looking at all this kerfuffle about not being able to get a tee time, and seeing that the Los Angeles Times, which ran a lead editorial on AB 1910 a couple of years ago, now they've run a lead editorial, and you need to clean up the reservation system for these excellent municipal golf courses. My sense is, I don't know if I want to, that group is just as passionate as those who believe in river restoration, in clean beaches, clean waters. In other words, and that's something, as you're aware, and those who pay really close attention, that's how we beat back that legislation in California that would have provided free money to developers and to municipalities to chop municipal golf courses into affordable housing complexes. It amounted to, they looked around and discovered that over 3 million people play golf in this state, and they get really worked up over it if you're going to close their golf course, and particularly when there's not nearly enough to go around. So the silver lining here is this has been a demonstration of certain principles that golf has struggled to communicate in a way that this communicated it out there. So there is that particular silver lining, and it's certainly something that I've seen and I've advertised out there. So the problem is, I don't think we'll ever see another golf course, public or private, built in the city of Los Angeles ever again. Probably won't see one in San Francisco or San Jose or San Diego or Atlanta or Houston, or I don't know about Dallas. I don't know every city. But to those who think, well, that California is a peculiar place, it's a California issue. It's not. It's an urban America issue. It's a Milwaukee issue. It's an issue that has to do with golf's great existential challenge. We use a lot of land. By definition, if we were pickleball or bocce ball, no one would pay attention to golf because it wouldn't encumber much. So by very definition, our activity encumbers space. So we better make the case that it's highly valued and that it's a social good. That's what I would add to this TechCon.
Let me ask a couple questions that came out of this article, this Yahoo article, in case other people go to find it as well. There was one claim by golfers that the brokers were exploiting a benefit that senior citizens get, a 10-day advance booking window instead of 9 days. Is that the case in Los Angeles?
No, that's an urban myth. It's a 9-day window, and there's no such thing as a senior citizen. The only advantage, look, I have one of those city cards. You buy, in order to book a reservation, and not just be walk up or in advance on the 9 days, you need to purchase this reservation card. If you can demonstrate that you're a senior, and despite appearances, I qualify, then it doubles as a senior card. Mm-hmm. But senior, there is no 10-day window. If you go to try to get a tee time on that internet system 10 days from now, You cannot. Nobody can. That's an urban myth. That simply is wrong. I'm glad that the LA Times editorial on Sunday cleared that up, because their reporting kind of confused it a little bit.
The article also mentioned, and I brought this up before, a gentleman named Rick Reinschmidt had said that the city's booking vendor, which is Golf Now, has bot quashing software that has flagged thousands for unusual activity. That's what I was trying to get to with Golf Now. Is it thousands? Are they facing the same type of onslaught of digital bots as Ticketmaster is? I'd like to know, and if I get a response from Golf Now, I'll be happy to publish that. But he also said that in the last 3 weeks, and this article came out last week, the city suspended 23 users from its booking system, and in the last year, 133 were suspended. So the city had some way of identifying people who were abusing the system, and I guess they suspend their players' cards. Is that what happens?
Yeah, they cancel the player's card. And I'm aware, I have more detail from some of the contracted out systems in the county of Los Angeles, where an amazing amount of labor goes into literally investigating things that just appear anomalous, or when you kind of notice somebody getting the same tee time roughly at one of their highly desirable golf courses that seems to not this strains credulity, they will then do an investigation. That's another downside of this. An awful lot of talent is going towards chasing this, and that's talent that could be dedicated towards like running golf courses and serving customers, which is their mission. So there's more than probably meets the public eye in trying to scurry behind the scenes to try to mitigate this to the greatest degree possible. And again, to the government's credit, they've been reluctant, because they didn't thoroughly understand the depth of the issue, to institute things that in many I've heard them call, well, those are de facto greens fee increases, and we're uncomfortable with that. Well, they are de facto greens fee increases. However, it's pretty clear to me, particularly all the golfers who have come forward, it's like, please, we're happy to pay this in order to restore equity to the system. I think the thing I fear the most is you could have 100% equity. Everyone could have the same opportunity to gain those tee times, and you'd still have persons that would almost never get a tee time at some of their favorite golf courses, because literally there are thousands of persons vying to get that. And so the odds are pretty slim. So I worry about the blowback when that happens as well. And I hope golfers are understanding, and I hope they understand the problem is Harvey, because you read the stuff that the SCGA puts out. I decided our foray a little over a week ago to try to add some, I think the subtitle was "The Heat is Merited, but a little light." We could use a little light on the subject, and that's kind of our role, to put some light on it. So I went back all the way to a 1991 Los Angeles Times story that talked to, again, a previous peak in the golf market in Southern California. And the conclusion was, we just don't have enough golf courses. Let me add an additional problem to that supply. So in the day, we were going to build a golf course a day. I won't go into that. But back in the 90s, a lot of golf courses opened 50, 60, 70 miles east of the LA area, in what we call the Inland Empire. And they were daily fee facilities, and they absorbed a lot of the excess demand. Well, when the golf market started to go down in 2004, exacerbated by a 2008, 2009 financial collapse that was really caused by the housing industry, and golf's always had a symbiotic relationship with housing. It sells the houses, and a lot of golf courses got built over the years that made no sense as golf courses, but they sold the houses, and then the golf market expanded to absorb the bad business models that somewhere down the line. Well, that was a game of musical chairs that had to end, and it did. So suddenly, those properties became much higher and better economic use than golf courses, was to put either warehouses or houses. So they're now gone. So there's less to absorb this exploding demand in Los Angeles, despite the unavailability. 2021 had the most play ever, and 2022 was better than that. And the 2023 numbers were even higher, even though 2023 had an awful lot of rain. That's a stunning thing. As we're looking at the numbers, both governments and operators, and how could the numbers be up when 2023 was such an incredibly wet year? We had so many rainy days. Mm-hmm. That's how packed these places are. So yes, we need more golf courses, but economically, it's totally untenable to build them.
And there are other things that golf courses can do and have done. I grew up at a course in a municipal course in Minneapolis, Brookview Golf Course, which actually in Golden Valley, that had split tees on weekends, and running 2 waves and sometimes 3 in the middle of the summer when we had the most daylight. Split tee starting on 1 and 10, according to my colleague Stuart Lindsay, increases a golf course's capacity by 14%, depending on your tee time intervals. It's a logistical issue. I mean, if both nines play about the same time frame, 1 through 9, 10 through 18, it can work out. But you have the maintenance issue of getting the maintenance people out in front of the golfers, teeing off on 2 sides, and so on. It's logistically a challenge, but it does help increase the capacity of how many golfers you can put on the golf course on a given day. It sounds to me, again, I'll bring up the term human bots because, figuratively, you could have a room full of people sitting in front of laptops at 6 a.m. And as soon as that clock up on the wall hits 6 a.m., they all punch on and they're reserving as many tee times as they possibly can. That's the human bot issue. And I don't know. We've talked about ways that might be solved. And one of them is advanced reservation fees or non-refundable fees that makes them put skin in the game that they probably would be more reluctant to do than they are now. And of course, it's going to rely on the technology providers, Golf Now in the case of the city, and I think you said Supreme Golf in the case of the county, to help mitigate this. And they should be, and hopefully are open to providing technology solutions to help both their huge clients. I mean, between the city and the county, those are probably 2 of their biggest single clients in the country. Helping them find ways to make this more equitable and fair for everybody. And if that's what comes out of this, as fast as the government can possibly move on this, I think you'll see a happier contingent of golfers across the landscape of the public facilities in your market.
Yeah, my understanding of the major players in this market for tee time providers, and my understanding is not that it's hardly an expert understanding, is Golf Now, Supreme, and 4Up. There may be another one. I apologize if I failed to mention one. It's not my area of expertise, which is why I'm intrigued on a show called Tech Talk. But thanks.
Anyway, Craig, this has been, as always, enlightening and entertaining. You have a unique capability of taking what could be a dry subject and adding some reasonable and well thought out explanations for it, adding a little levity from times. I will add that you will soon be stepping down from your 15-year career as the Director of Public Affairs for the Southern California Golf Association, and which has been an extension of your 30 years of advocacy on behalf of particularly public and municipal golf. But you're still going to be around. We're still going to hear from you. You're still going to write and be involved in various aspects of the golf industry in California. And I assume probably called on from time to time by other organizations, golf organizations across the country, as you have been over the years, including NGCOA. So,
Harvey, if I were to respond to all the people who are talking to me right now, I would be busy or retired, semi-retired. So I'm not a retiring type. So I'm stepping down, but not entirely out. And I will remain in a consulting role with the SCGA. But I'll say that I have a successor who's ready to take this on, and we have some good people on staff here. And I think I'm probably most proud of having figured out a way to keep something going in a niche that's pretty difficult in this game.
But you will now have a little more time to be online at 6 a.m. trying to find that tee time and get out with the other golfers as a dew skimmer, maybe early in the morning.
Well, that could be. I've always stated that because SCGA has 200,000 members, I'm always constrained and painfully aware that anything I say or do is a reflection on 200,000 people. But if I'm speaking just for myself, I might be a little bit more of a handful in some of these public forums. Just a warning to everybody.
You and I have played golf together once before, and I'm hoping that we can do that again and maybe more times than just once. So congratulations on your career, your next steps in keeping all of us honest about the importance and value of golf in all aspects. And thanks again for being with us today, Craig.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure. And thanks for having me on something called Tech Talk. I like that.
Tech Talk. That's it.
Okay.
Everybody, thank you very much for tuning in. We hope that you've heard and learned some things about the supply and demand issue that's happening, probably more prevalent across the country than just in the Southern California, Los Angeles market. If there are those issues, we'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear from you. You can always reach me at harvey@silverbackgolf.com, or if you're an NGTOA member, post on Accelerate. I take a look at those things as well and be happy to get in touch with you if you have some questions or issues. Again, thank you very much, everybody. Take care, and the season's opening.